me and salute to him and I knew this guy, a friend of mine's grandfather. He lived to be 101. He was a veteran in World War II. And he has one hell of a story. So Charles Holtzman, he passed May 7th, 2021. But now this man, shout out to him. Let me get this page up. So there was an article about it. There was actually a DVD made. Well, I had the DVD, but it was he was actually on a PBS special.
Oh, damn, really?
Telling his story. Yeah, they wrote about him in a lot of the local papers. He was a local hero. Like, this guy did a lot of amazing things with his life. And I'm gonna read this story. It's not too long, but it's a very, very amazing story. So I'm gonna skip some parts, some personal details of his, because I don't know, I don't know. But so let's get into it. Age 20, shortly after he joined the army in 1940. So he joined the army in 1940, 20 years old. So at first it starts off talking about him as an old man and what he was doing at this time. He's since passed, obviously, like I said. Rest in peace to Charlie. But so Charlie is the kind of man that everyone at the Chelmsford Senior Center goes to for answers. Anytime anyone needs information or needs to know where to find something, he's the one who usually knows. Charlie has been the general manager of the Friends of the Chelmsford Senior Center for 35 years, since before the center even existed. He was he was an integral part of the fundraising that paved the way for the center to be built in 1989, and has continued to find ways to support in operations and programming. I just like to stay busy, he said, at 95 years old. He's not one for frills and recognition, and he's perhaps even more modest about his service during World War II. I was just one of thousands, Holtzman says in the living room of his Crispin Avenue home in Lowell, while he and his partner enjoy their late afternoon martinis.
Nice, you earned it, bro.
Yeah. Um, his partner gets annoyed when he tries to brush off any interest others have in his service. And she says, "But you were one of the ones who came back alive," she reminds him. So he was born in Brooklyn, November 20th, 1919. So in 1940, him and a close friend saw the writing on the wall with the increasing conflicts around the world that would eventually be known as World War II. They thought they'd outsmart the draft they were sure would come. They figured they would sign up for the army early, put their time in, and be out in a few years ready to join the workforce without the worry, without, going to war. So, but the war had other plans. Instead of 3 years, Charlie would spend 5 years and 15 days in the army, 2.5 years of which were spent as a prisoner of war.
Damn.
Yep. Charlie did his basic training at Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, enlisted with a company, a 18th Infantry 1st Division. The same year, he and the whole division were sent to Fort Devens. It was while he was stationed there that he met his first wife. They planned to marry in the spring of 1942, but when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, it was clear that Charlie would soon be sent overseas. They married on Christmas Day that year. He was a romantic too, this guy. Very, very, very interesting man.
Yeah, seems like it. 2 marriages. You got to
3. He had.
Yeah, you got to be romantic to go through 2 and then still try again.
Right. So Charlie and his Division embarked for Europe aboard the Queen Mary.
Okay.
Yep. Arriving in Scotland in August 1942. They spent time in England before traveling to Algeria on British ships. The invasion of North Africa began that November. While in St. Cloud in Algeria's Oran province, Charlie had a close call. With machine gun fire spraying from the center of town, he went to find out if he could fire an anti-tank grenade to clear their path. As he stuck his head out to look, enemy fire took out the wall next to his head.
Damn.
Charlie was struck in the arm with a ricochet bullet, but it only burned his jacket. He said he wanted to keep it as a souvenir, but it was too hot to pick up.
Damn.
The troops headed toward Tunisia in trucks. Everything was fine until they hit Hill 609, which they were to take over from the British, Charlie said. But when they arrived, there were no British troops, just Germans firing down on them. So it was a trap. So it was a trap. Visibility was poor. Charlie used his grenade rifle as a mortar and got down on the ground. The Germans shot at the grass with their weapons and it disappeared in front of him. A bullet went straight through his collar, missing his head and neck.
Jesus.
Yep. It was December 23rd, 1943, and Charlie would begin his 2.5 years as a POW. As the German soldiers led him and other captured American troops to the German lines, Charlie had to help carry a German soldier that he had hit in the leg with the anti-tank grenade.
Jesus.
The young man cried for his mother the whole way back. He didn't make it, so the German soldier died. Charlie asked one of the German guards if it was okay to smoke and offered him a cigarette. The guard could have taken everything he had, but instead only took one cigarette and returned the pack to him. He was no happier to be there than I was, Charlie said. That's when you find out you're fighting an enemy that doesn't want to fight you either. Because these soldiers, man, they don't want to be there.
Yeah.
2 days later, the Germans turned him and the other prisoners over to the Italians. Now, keep in mind, one of the other prisoners that was with him was the friend that he was friends with since a kid that he went into the army with. He was a prisoner of war with that guy, and they remained friends until the day they died.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the friend died first, and then he died like not that long after, like maybe like a year. But they would meet every like twice a week for lunch or whatever. Or actually, it might have been every day. But because like they had so much, in common, it's crazy. But it says 2 days later, the Germans turned him and other prisoners over to the Italians. Charlie was sent to Sicily, where he would spend a month in prison camp in the mountains above Palermo. The conditions were very cold and food was scarce. While the German soldiers were respectful, the Italians were rough with the prisoners, Charlie said, sometimes shooting between their legs as they walked just for fun. He was then sent to another prison camp on mainland Italy in Servigliano in the Marsh in the Marche. He spent 9 months there before he was able to escape through a hole in the wall. Traveled with 5 others and found a friendly family that fed them. In the daytime, they hid in a valley that had tiny caves on the side of a hill, but German paratroopers found them and returned them to the camp. Yep. They were then sent to Germany by train, eventually moving between 5 different camps. The first was desolate and they didn't stay long. A guard told them it was just for the J word and pigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. that's what they said to them. And the others hadn't been aware of the concentration camps. He and the others hadn't been aware of the concentration camps. So at this time, they hadn't even been aware that of the concentration camps at all.
Right.
But when the Russians were getting closer to the camp, they spent the most time. They evacuated and marched the prisoners 150 kilometers over icy terrain. Charlie slipped and suffered a muscle injury that sent pain shooting from his groin to his shoulder. From your groin to your shoulder? What the hell kind? What the hell kind of? That's crazy. He couldn't walk any further and passed out from the pain. A German soldier ordered him to keep marching and stuck his rifle in Charlie's stomach. Charlie told him to shoot, that he was better off dead.
At that point, you're like, bro.
Yep. The German soldier didn't, but warned him that others who were coming wouldn't hesitate. 2 wheeled carts pulled up by mules came and transported Charlie and other injured prisoners back to the rest of the group. The Russians later took over the prison camp and planned to take the prisoners back to Russia to use as bargaining chips. American officers came through to check on the prisoners and told them that if they could escape, to meet up with search parties who would be out looking for American casualties. So the American soldiers were there and told them, like, hey, escape and just look for the search parties.
Right.
So one morning about 3 a.m., Charlie and another prisoner from his company, which was his best friend, snuck out and cut a hole in the wire fence. He doesn't remember what they used to do it. They hid in the brush until they saw the American trucks come through and flagged one down. When they finally reached the Elbe River, the pontoon bridges had been taken up and they couldn't get across. The Americans asked a Russian general if they could use his barge. He agreed, but only 6 people could fit at a time. Charlie was in the last group to cross the river onto the American lines. Boy, was I glad to reach the other side, he said. This is crazy. And like, he's not like a big guy. He wasn't a big guy back then either. And honestly, I think he was like a like engine repair guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ended up having to, like, he's the only one in the tank, and he's like, can I shoot this guy? Like, can I shoot them to clear a path? Like, you know what I mean? And that's what started the whole thing. So it's kind of crazy. So a few days later, Charlie was, it was May 8th, 1945, Victory in Europe Day. That's crazy that was the day that they actually escaped. A few days later, Charlie was flown to Le Havre, France, where he encountered then General Dwight Eisenhower. Damn.
What the dude? No wonder why they made a movie about this guy.
Right, I know. Who would later become president, obviously. Mm-hmm. He said Eisenhower slapped him on the back and said, damn good job, son. Charlie was finally able to return to Massachusetts that June and received an honorable discharge that August. He and his wife had 2 children and he became a civilian repairman at Fort Devens, where he worked for 25 years. After his wife died in 1980, Holtzman would remarry twice. He met his second wife at the senior luncheons that he ultimately became the inspiration to start a senior center. Oh, that's dope. And then she and his third wife have both died. And then he actually remarried again after that. So he was actually married 4 times.
Jesus.
But yeah, man. So this guy has a very interesting story, and I was lucky enough to have met him and multiple times and talked to him, and I actually sat down and had a conversation with him about this, but I wish I had been filming it, because the way he told the story was very, very different. Right. But yeah, so, you know, shout out to all the veterans, especially the ones that, you know, get stuck out and stuff like that. Like he said, you know, I didn't want to be there, neither did the German soldier, you know, like, so, shout out to all the people who were forced into it and then got stuck in situations like that and actually survived it, because surviving a prison camp for 2.5 years, especially being constantly moved from country to country to country, like France, Russia, um, Germany. I feel like I'm forgetting one. There was like 4 different countries that he went to.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's crazy. So yeah, man, it's a wild story. I'm glad I got to get that off. It was a little long, but I feel like
Yeah, bro, that was fire. I was
yeah,
like,
man.
I didn't even want to like say much because I was just listening, and it's like,
Yeah, it's a great story, and I even forgot like some of those details and stuff because it's been a while. He passed, like I said. Wait, when did he pass? I think it was July 2021 or something like that. Let's see. I got his obituary right here. Oh, his obituary actually says something really nice too. Yeah. Oh, May 7th, 2021. He passed away. Rest in peace to Charlie. He made it to 101. He was 101 years old when he passed away.
damn.
So shout out to him. Yeah. So it says that. Um, let's see. He was employed at Fort Devens for 25 years, retiring from his position as office machine repairman. Charlie was a lifetime member of the Lowell Sportsman Club, the Lowell VFW, and the American Legion, post number 313 in North Chelmsford. He was also a member of the Chelmsford Elks. Charlie volunteered his time for 40 years as business manager and purchasing agent at Friends of the Senior Center, which we found out he actually created basically because he was doing it before it even started. So,
Right.
shout out to that, man. Shout out to Charlie, man. Shout out to Charlie.
Shout out to John. That's fucking. It's crazy.
That's a crazy story, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, nice guy from Massachusetts, and lucky he made it back, man. Glad he made it back, and he ended up really making something of himself, and ended up, the guy was kind of, not rich, but he was, he had some money, so
Yeah, song.
he got a little something. So he made money somehow. I don't know, but he did all right for himself when he got back from the war.
Right.
So shout out to him.
Fucking ain't right, bruh.
Um,